And I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker, who I know is deeply committed to helping make that happen, as are all of our speakers, but I know his personal commitment, of Rabbi Peter Knobel, who is the senior rabbi of Beth Emet, the Free Synagogue in Evanston, Illinois, and the immediate past president of the Central Conference of American Rabbis. Rabbi?
Thank you very much. I wish I could preach like that. The Holy See is to be congratulated for its important statement, Nuclear Disarmament, Time for Abolition. It is a clarion call for a global ethic which changes the nature of the relationships among nations and moves toward a new era in which the survival of the planet is not only guaranteed, but all its inhabitants will thrive. It calls for a paradigm shift, moving away from deterrence as a strategy to the abolition of nuclear weapons as a practical and moral necessity. Because of the importance of this document and the sacred nature of its content, in good Jewish tradition, I will offer a Jewish commentary on 10 of its most salient points. Number one, now more than ever, the facts of technological and political interdependence cry out for an ethic of solidarity in which we will work with one another for a less dangerous and morally responsible global future. The Talmud teaches that God created a single human being to declare that each and every one of us was God's creation, equally precious in God's eyes, and that the taking of a single human life was the equivalent of destroying the entire world. Now that we have the capacity to destroy the entire world, God calls upon us to step back from the brink and reassert the preciousness of every single life in order to preserve all life. Two, for 60 years, nuclear deterrence has been thought to provide only a sort of peace. As we already heard, the prophet Jeremiah warned, "From the smallest to the greatest, they are all greedy for gain, priest and prophet alike. They all act falsely, saying, 'Shalom, shalom, ve'ein shalom,' peace, peace, when there is no peace. Nuclear deterrence is a false peace. Genuine peace can only be achieved when omnicide, the ability to destroy creation, has been removed as a possibility, and we join with the psalmist in saying to one another, 'How good and how pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in harmony.' 3, it must be admitted that every possession of nuclear weapons, even for the purpose of deterrence, is morally problematical. Mutually assured destruction, the old phrase for nuclear deterrence, is mad. It is an illusion of safety. The mushroom cloud threatens to obliterate the rainbow, which God placed in the heavens after the flood, as the symbol of God's promise to Noah and all of humankind, that God would never again be the source of universal destruction. That awesome power of destruction now resides in our hands. Incinerating the rainbow will unleash devastation beyond God's or our darkest nightmares. The late Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, when asked by a student, "Is gelatin kosher?" responded, "What about nuclear weapons?" We today proclaim with Abraham Joshua Heschel that nuclear weapons are not kosher. 4, the language of intention obscures the fact that nuclear armories and instruments of military strategy inherently bear active disposition for use. Professor Reuven Kimmelman writes, "For the deterrent to be effective, it must be the immoral intent to use them." He continues, "For Isaiah, it is not enough to desist from going to war. Nations must also cease the education for war. Training for war itself may make war irresistible. The Isaianic policy of swords into plowshares, however, entails not just the replacement of the sword with the plowshare, but the beating of the sword into a plowshare, that is, the conversion of the means of destruction into the means of construction. Creating an economic alternative to the arms industry is thus an imperative of realistic disarmament." The essence of this biblical perspective is that we must change the paradigm. It is not enough to destroy weapons of mass destruction, but to change the way people think, so war is not an option, and then all can thrive and prosper. 5, the political and military officials of nuclear-possessing states assume the responsibility to use these weapons if deterrence fails. Rabbi Bradley Archon states, Judaism presents a flat refusal to countenance the use of nuclear weapons, even as a tool of defense. The scope of their devastation, the inability to provide for the immunity of non-combatants, the meaninglessness of dividing defense from offense in a nuclear war propels this weapon beyond the pale of acceptability. 6, the time has come for new thinking on how to challenge complacency surrounding the belief in nuclear deterrence. Changed circumstances bring new responsibilities for decision makers. There is a principle in Jewish law, shinui ha'itim. Changed circumstances call for a revision of previous decisions. It may have seemed right and sensible during the era of the Cold War that deterrence was the best way to prevent nuclear disaster. But the world is different now. Nuclear deterrence and even non-proliferation are insufficient safeguards. They are morally deficient as they preserve the ability of some to destroy creation by accident or by design. 7, the egregious humanitarian consequences that inevitably result from any use of nuclear weapons amount to a basic offense against humanity and the global good. The mitzvah of Bal Tashchit, the prohibition of wanton destruction, is an important Jewish principle. It is rooted in the requirement in the Torah that when one besieges a city, one must not cut down the fruit trees. The implication is clear. Even in the midst of war, we may not destroy the resources that will make life after war possible. Nuclear war is uncontrolled, wanton destruction, therefore prohibited. It threatens the very purpose of creation. As we have been taught by the prophet Isaiah, for thus said the Lord, the creator of heaven, who alone is God, who formed the earth and made it, who alone established it. He did not create it a waste, but formed it for habitation. 8, the reallocation of funding from arms to development is essential to social justice. Jews are in the midst of Passover, the festival of freedom and redemption. The ritual meal, the Seder, begins with our raising the unleavened bread, the matzah, and saying, Ha lachma anya. This is the bread of poverty which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are needy come and celebrate Passover. The Hebrew prophets remind us that society is judged by how it treats the weakest members of society. True religion requires action which translates ritual into transformative action. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, a 27-hour fast, we read the words of Isaiah. Is such the fast I desire? A day for people to starve their bodies? Is it bowing the head like a bulrush and lying in sackcloth and ashes? Do you call that a fast? A day when the Lord is favorable? No, this is the fast I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness, untie the cords of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, to break every yoke, to share your bread with the hungry, to take the wretched poor into your home, and when you see the naked to clothe him, and not to ignore your own kin. Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your healing spring up. 9, peace does not consist in mere absence of war, but rather in enjoyment of a full set of rights and goods that foster the complete development of the whole person and community. The Hebrew word for peace is shalom. It is derived from the Hebrew root shin lamed mem, meaning to be whole or complete. Shalom truly means a state of wholeness where every human being can live out their full human potential and safety with resources necessary to live healthy and productive lives. 10, in short, to achieve nuclear abolition, we need to resist succumbing to the limits set by political realism. The fear that drives the reluctance to disarm must be replaced by a spirit of solidarity that binds humanity to achieve the global common good of which peace is its fullest expression. I would like to repeat the words that I spoke the last time I had the opportunity to speak on this issue at the United Nations. As you all know, emblazoned on the wall of this great body are the words of the Hebrew prophet Isaiah. They represent the essence of the mission of this great body. And he shall judge between nations and reprove many peoples, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Lo yisagoy al goy harev, v'lo yilmadu od milchama. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. The Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai bids us go further than Isaiah. He writes, "Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first." Our goal as religious leaders can be nothing less than the abolition of nuclear weapons as a moral necessity and the transformation of the resources which have been expended on nuclear weapons into a transformative peace dividend which will change the relationship among nations and lift the poor from the oppression of poverty. Kain Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will. May this be our will.